So, a pleasant day everyone. I am Reggie Daha, your reporter for today. And today, we're going to talk about the Asian folklore creatures. But, before we begin, I have prepared a very short activity entitled Familiar Faces. So, in our pre-activity, you're instructed to identify where the given creatures are located or from which country they originated from. So in our pre-activity, you're going to identify where these 6 specific creatures came from. So okay now, without prolonging, let's proceed to our discussion about the folklore creatures of Asia. Now, before we tackle the folklore creatures of Asia, let us first define what is a folktale or a folklore. So, according here, folklore refers to the tales that people tell, may it be folk stories, fairy tales, and tall tales, and sometimes even urban legends. Folklore is typically passed down by the words of mouth, but the key here is that the folklore has no author, meaning it just emerged from the culture and is carried forward by constant retelling. So our first stop is the folktale creatures of Japan, and the first one is the kappa. So the kappa, also known as river child, according to Japanese folklores, are very scary and reptilian-skinned creatures who are just about the size of a child. Although they are dangerous and are perceived as a troublemaker, they are extremely polite and can understand the Japanese culture and language. One thing noticeable about them is the indentation at the top of their head. When away from the water, it is said that they have to keep the water within the bound-like indentation to maintain their powers. Without it, they would be immobilized. Next is the Kasa Obake, or called the Umbrella Ghost. The folk legend about this Japanese spirit came about after the umbrella was used for 100 years. So, Kasa Obake are type of Tsukagami, which are object that will come to life after existing for 100 years. So, for example, if you're using your underwear or your eyeglasses or even your shoes for 100 years, it will turn into a Tsukagami or a possessed like spirit item. Next one is the akame, also called as the filth liquor, and that's literally what they exist to do. They dwell in the places which are filthy, for example, like unclean toilet, and use their very long tongue to lick all the grime and the dirt off their poisonous saliva. So it is believed that this creature was just made up by parents to scare their kids into cleaning their rooms. And last but not the least is the Shirime or the Ano's Eye. So, it is an odd Japanese mythical folklore creature that has an eye where his anus is supposed to be. So, the folktale illustrates that there was once a samurai walking home alone at night when someone from behind shouted and asked him for him to wait. The man was so nervous that he quickly turned around and asked who was there, only to find another man undressing and pointing his bottom. And that's how the story of the Shirime came about. So, our next stop is the folktale creatures of Malaysia. And the first one is the Sang Kelembay. Sang Kelembay or the Stone Ogre. So, Sang Kelembay is apparently a giant monster with the power to turn people into a stone. So, you can compare him to Medusa. So, that makes him or her the Malaysian version of Medusa. So, according to the legends, they live in the woods and hate people who make noises. They are also so large that they can walk from one place to another in just one step. So, the next one is the Orang Mawas, aka the Bigfoot of Johor. So, Orang Mawas is described as a tall ape-like figure covered in a black fur, which reportedly feeds on a fish and raids orchards. So, the next one is the Cenderawasi. So, Cenderawasi is believed to came from heaven itself. According to Kitab Tajul Maluk, many ancient Malay royal palaces own these rare birds. They only drank dew, and ate clouds. It was so pure that it would spend its entire life in the air. Malaysian and Indonesian legend says that cenderawasih were so beautiful that all who looked upon them were stunned. These birds would only fall on the earth when it was time to die, and even then, its body would not decay easily. These birds were said to be lucky and had the power to protect their owners from the dark magic. So, the next one is the Santu Sangkay, aka the monstrous mothman. So, apparently, Santu Sangkay are half human and half monster. So, the story of Santu Sangkay came about when a hunter named Henry van Heerden was apparently hunting in a forest at night near the Kuala Lumpur when he saw two of these creatures coming at him. He described the creature as tall, very large, and looked like demons from hell. Santu Sangkay are also sometimes called the shapeshifter. So the last one from the Malaysian folklore creature is the Tambuakar or the giant Borneo water snake. So Tambuakar is described as a large black long-necked serpent. So the story says that he started his life as a sinsilog, which is the king of the fishes, who ruled over all life in the river, and after living for 1,000 years, it slowly turned into a size and a shape of a dragon. So, according to the legend, it retreated underwater in order to avoid human contact. Seeing a tambuakar or a giant Borneo water snake is considered to be a good luck, and its scales were believed to give people super strength if you're able to get some. And now we arrived at the Philippines, and the first folktale creature that we are going to tackle is the aswang. So, aswang or the term aswang is very popular here in the Philippines, especially here in Capiz, for we use it to describe something that eats human flesh or raw flesh, or the flesh of other creatures. We tend to use the term aswang whenever we experience something that is out of the ordinary or our comprehension, just to rest the case. Aswang tends to terrorize at night, especially if there is a pregnant woman. And normally, people will place garlic and salt at their windows or door to fend off the creature. And the next one is the mangkukulam, or the Filipino version of a witch. So, mangkukulam tends to put a curse or create a potion that can potentially harm and also benefit a human. After someone kulam you or put a curse on you, you have to personally apologize to them in order for them to lift the curse. So, the next one is a sigbin. So, a sigbin is described as a small kangaroo with flapping ears, burning eyes, and a whipping-like tail, and the ability to walk backwards. It is said that during the Holy Week, sigbin tends to go out and hunt for the hearts of the children. After gathering the hearts, they will then turn it into a little amulet. But usually, sigbin tends to attack poultry animals than humans. And the next one is a diwata. So, a diwata is described as a beautiful, harmless woman. But don't be fooled by its appearance. Just because it looks harmless doesn't mean it won't spite you. Diwatas are also called encantaja and is benevolent or neutral and invoke ritually for positive crop growth, health, and fortune. Also, there are times where they can incur illness or misfortune if not given proper respect. And lastly, the manananggal. Although it belongs to the aswang category, it is arguably the most popular one, for it is unique compared to others. It has this unique characteristic wherein he can sever his lower body and return to it later. It is said that in order to capture one, you need to find the lower part of its body, for it will surely return before the sun rises. And now we arrive at the last part of our destination, which is China. So the first folklore creature that we're going to tackle is Jingwei. So Jingwei is the youngest daughter of the Emperor Yandi, legendary ruler of the primitive China. While she was enjoying herself at the sea one day, a strong wind rose and she drowned. Just before she buried by the surging waves, she turned into a beautiful bird. The bird looked like a crow, but had a colorful head and a white bill and two red claws. She lived on the Faiju Hill, where she grew a lot of mulberry bushes, and when she flew over the roaring seas, it cried soundly in the sound Jinwei, Jingwei. And that's why people call it Jingwei. The next one is Xingshan. Xingshan was a giant who followed the young emperor. Later, he rebelled against the Yellow Emperor and challenged him to a duel. The two fought an epic battle that shook the mountains to the roots and caused the gods to weep. Finally, the Yellow Emperor, using a trick to distract Xingshan, managed to lop off the giant's head with one sword stroke. However, the headless Xingshan refuses to die. Instead, he groped around on the ground for his head. The Yellow Emperor then split a mountain and buried the giant's head, at point which Xingshan stood up and used his nipple as the eyes and his belly button as the mouth. Though his new eyes could not see and his new mouth could not talk, Xingshan warred on, defying authority eternally with his battle axe and shield. And the next one is the nine-tailed fox. In China, the nine-tailed spirit fox is a skilled shapeshifter. The earliest legends speak of clever foxes who hide deep in the mountains, where they study and practice Taoist magic in an effort to gain immortality. It is said that the more wisdom they gain, the more tails they grow, and after 1,000 of years, the most skilled fox spirit grows 9 tails and become immortal. They can take any shape of any human, male, female, young, or old. And the last one is the Tauti. So, the Tauti is described as an extremely greedy beast with an outsized head. It is so ravenous that it ultimately swallowed the rest of its own body, leaving only a head. So, because Tauti is so ravenous and it consumes a lot and devours a lot, even its own body, it becomes the synonym in the Chinese for the glutton. So, the signia and the icons of Tauti is emblazoned on a bronze and other artifacts during the first millennium BC. Tauti is also considered as one of the four evil creatures in the world, according to the Chinese mythological creatures. So this is going to be the last Asian folklore creature that we're going to tackle. And this is where my report ends. I hope that you enjoy it. So before we totally end our report, I'm going to give you 4 application tasks, which is a very simple one. You're just going to use a web organizer to describe the following folktale creature of each country, specifically Japan, China, Philippines, and Malaysia. And for the evaluation, you're going to answer a multiple choice type of question, which is very easy, I think, for you. And so, thank you everyone. This is where my discussion ends, and I hope that you're enjoying your day.